Ole Miss is playing Oklahoma on Saturday, and thanks to the Florida Gators, it's gotten a little bit interesting.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast and the Locked On Sooners podcast. John Williams joining us. I'm Stephen Willis. Thank you for being here today. And hey, thanks for making this your first listen every single day. We appreciate that very much. We're going to talk about the storylines around this football game. And it's weird because there's a third team involved. And we'll talk about some of the players that we need to keep an eye on in this football game. And finally, we're going to talk about paths to victory and score predictions as well. So stick around for that. Listen, we're available and free on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On Sooners your first listen every day. Special hello to the insiders and everydayers that make the show what it is. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download that app today. All right. So, John, this is interesting because we've been joking over the course of the week because of all of the Florida noise that's happening up around there. Heck, Brandon Olson from Locked On Gators, he's like just roving, going around trying to start an argument with absolutely everybody. It's funny. It really is. But after the 2022 experience when Auburn did this to Ole Miss, and Ole Miss started 7-1 and ended up 8-5, Ole Miss fans are a little bit concerned about this game and what can happen. Now, is this the Alabama game from 2022 that Ole Miss actually played really well in, or is this the Arkansas game where they absolutely did not? That's going to be a major, major storyline in this game.
Yeah, so we've got a top 15 matchup. And here we got Florida, like living out the meme, get in there and make it about yourself. You know, that's exactly what's happening right now. And I mean, it's going to be a fantastic football game on the field, but it certainly has far reaching implications beyond what happens on Saturday because Lane Kiffin, Florida, Ole Miss, that little love triangle, it could be severely impacted by what happens on Saturday. Not to mention this game is going to have huge college football playoff implications as well.
Yeah, I honestly think that if Ole Miss can go into, is it Owen Field or Gaylord Stadium?
So it's Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium.
Okay.
Owen Field. Named after one of their early head coaches, Benny Owen.
Okay. So when you look at that, if Ole Miss wins this game, if they go into Oklahoma and wins this lifelong rival that they've had for 2 centuries now,
yeah.
If they can get that, they're going to go 11-1. They're going to host a playoff game in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium in Oxford. Lane Kiffin is not going to Florida if he's in the playoff at that point. If Ole Miss loses to Oklahoma, I think they're going to drop another game after that, and they're going to end up 9-3 or 8-4 at that point and missing the playoffs, and then everything's on the table. So this game has very much meaning, especially to the Ole Miss fans of where it could go. Yeah. Now, I think Ole Miss has a better team than Oklahoma. And I don't mean that in any disrespectful type of way. I think the way they're set up, the things that Oklahoma does poorly is exactly what Ole Miss defends against poorly. Like Ole Miss is bad against the run. Oklahoma's not running the ball at a high clip. Oklahoma turns the ball over. Ole Miss can't get turnovers. So it's kind of a resistible force versus a movable object type deal when these two teams get together. But offensively, the quarterback matchup potentially with John Mateer and Trinidad Chambliss, it has a chance to be really fun. And Oklahoma fans don't get excited when you see a 5'9", 5'10" quarterback scrambling all over the field there and have flashbacks to somebody that previously won a Heisman Trophy.
Yep.
It's just the way it is. He's a really good player. Everybody's going to see, hey, he went to a Division II school. How can he do it when he steps up? No, he's a really good player, and he proved that against Georgia, honestly.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons why somebody has to start off at a D2 school or a JUCO or an FCS program. There's a lot of reasons why that can happen. Sometimes guys just get strictly overlooked. in the recruiting process. I mean, we've been doing this a while, and you see it all the time. Guys that are unranked players or 3-star prospects, John Mateer being a great example, had just one FBS offer altogether. And here we are. We've got 2 quarterbacks that went under the radar on the recruiting trail, and now they're starring in a top 15 matchup. That just goes to show you that sometimes recruiting experts, they get it, and sometimes they miss the boat a little bit. But yeah, Trinidad Chambliss, he's a great quarterback, and I think he's doing a really good job at distributing the football this year. I was talking on my show on Wednesday just about the thing that has me the most concerned is the bevy of weapons that they have at their disposal. We have 5 guys over 300 yards receiving, 6 guys with 16 receptions on the year. So Lane and Trinidad, they're moving the ball, and they're making sure that everybody's eating a little bit. And 4 guys that are averaging more than 15 yards per reception so far. And that's just nuts, man. And so, yes, Oklahoma's going to struggle a little bit against this passing attack. They're really, really good, and they can make big plays. It's just a matter of, can the secondary step up and play their best game of the season? We saw the offensive line play their best game of the season last week against South Carolina, where they're actually able to run the ball a little bit. Have a good opportunity now to run the ball against an Ole Miss team that's 99th in the nation in rush defense. Not great. But if Oklahoma shows that, hey, we're running the ball like we did prior to South Carolina, then it could be a little bit of a slog. But if they can build on it, I think it's really going to be in Oklahoma's favor to slow the game down a little bit. Even try to play a little bit of keep away. Try to keep Trinidad and the offense off the field, keep your defense fresh, and try to win a close game. It's going to be a close game. I just know that.
Yeah, I'm absolutely positive it's going to be a close game. And we had a group chat text earlier in the week when we were talking about it, and you brought up last year's game of what was going on. And you actually asked the question, is Trinidad Chambliss a better quarterback than Jackson Dart? Which, no, he's not. He's not. I'm not saying that at all. But this Ole Miss offense is completely different than that team. This team, Trinidad Chambliss, will have 2, 3, 4 receptions to 8 different wide receivers in a game. Jackson Dart would have 11 receptions to Trey Harris in a game. And because of that, Brent Venables, who's a really good defensive coach, any defensive coach can take away something in a game. If you know what you need to take away, you're going to be able to perform. The strength of this Ole Miss team, and honestly, what makes Trinidad better than he probably is as a quarterback, is the fact that you don't really know who to double team against Ole Miss. You don't know who is going to be the guy in that game. Is it going to be Deshaun Stribling, former Oklahoma State Cowboy, by the way? Is it going to be Caden Lee? Is it going to be Trey Wallace or the tight end? Ole Miss has a tight end that's averaging nearly 24 yards a catch or something like that. It's absolutely nuts. And it's because that whoever you decide to shade to and do the things that honestly all defensive quarterbacks do or coordinators do in college football, Ole Miss does have that bevy of weapons to where if you're looking right, just throw it left. And that's what they've been successful with this year. Now, the problem with Ole Miss, and we're going to talk about it defensively, they've been doing a lot of it's a version of the John Haycock Iowa State stuff where they're just rushing 3 and dropping 8 in coverage. It's kind of a version of that. I don't think it's going to be as predominant against Oklahoma this weekend. I think they're going to go to a little bit more pressure package. They're going to try and make John Mateer make decisions quickly because Oklahoma's turnover margin this season has not been particularly good. So the best thing that they can try and do is to speed up the game a little bit if they're not expecting it. And I think that is the defensive path to basically take away the running game and just really get after the quarterback. Now, does that mean that John Mateer is going to get loose a couple of times in the game? Probably. I mean, that's going to happen. But I do think that's a risk that Ole Miss is willing to take.
Yeah, if you try to play shell and just rush 3 and drop 8, that's not necessarily going to be a recipe for success because Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer showed last week they're willing to live in the short area of the field. Texas took away all the deep stuff, and they seemed to try to force the issue down the field, and it didn't work. Last week against South Carolina, they played more short intermediate ball in the passing game, and they ran the football. They were willing to nickel and dime their way on some scoring drives, and it worked. So I think it was a bit of a maturation process from John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle after that Texas loss to say, hey, we need to be willing to make some adjustments and take what the defense is willing to give us, because we've got enough skill talent that we can create big plays after the catch, even if it's a 5-yard slant or a 6-yard out. So I think there's going to be some interesting chess pieces and chess matches happening in this game. I likened it to kind of an old-fashioned heavyweight bout that's going to go 15 rounds, and you're going to see each guy take a round here, around there, and it's going to just be a back and forth battle throughout the thing. And you're going to get to the 15th round on the scorecard, and you're going to, I don't know who's going to win this one. It's just going to be that close of a game.
Yeah. Whenever you're dealing with lifelong rivals like this,
That's right.
You can't expect anything else. I mean, these rivals are permanent. I mean, yeah, forget Bedlam, forget Nebraska. This Ole Miss rivalry, it just lives in Oklahoma fans' heads. So anyway, when we come back, we will talk about some players that you need to pay attention to in this game. Locked On Ole Miss, Stephen Willis, John Williams from Locked On Sooners. We'll be right back after this.
One of the tools that helps makes a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard us talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that needs you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline. And their built-in AI agent is a game changer. It can answer after-hours calls, capture leads, and keep businesses moving even when you're off the clock. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. You can even keep your existing number for free. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. And today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. College football and NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. And whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
All right, Stephen Willis, Locked On Ole Miss, John Williams, Locked On Sooners. And John, this is an interesting game because everybody from Oklahoma and Ole Miss, they're familiar. Trinidad Chambliss, Kewan Lacey, the names they're going to be familiar with. But one of the players that I think that everybody needs to pay attention to is Andrew Jones. He was a reserve linebacker that has kind of been lost in the shuffle. Got about 25 snaps against Georgia, and he was one of the few defensive players that made an impact in that game. And there's a rumor going around that he might even start this game for the Ole Miss Rebels. But he is a guy that was the SWAC player of the year at Grambling. He committed, he went to the transfer portal, originally committed to South Carolina, ended up going to Ole Miss. Really good player. I'm curious to see if there is a mindset shift in what Pete Golding is wanting to do in this game. But Andrew Jones is somebody that's a really big athlete, and he does not shy away from contact at all.
Yeah, and for Oklahoma, there's a defensive end that's kind of in a similar boat. Not a guy that they got out of the transfer portal, but he was an unheralded, 3-star defensive end out of Tennessee, flew under the radar, and actually only really got Oklahoma's interest because they lost Colton Vasek to Texas in the fall of that year. And Taylor Wine was a late commitment. He committed, I think, in November, just before the early signing period. And he is a star, man. He's a star for this defense, even though you've got guys like R. Mason Thomas, and you've got Kip Lewis, and you've got David Stone, who's a former 5-star defensive tackle, and Jaden Jackson, who was a freshman All-American. Taylor Wine might be the best player on this team so far this year. He's got 10.5 tackles for loss. He's got 3.5 sacks. R. Mason Thomas, who's a future, top 50 pick at the NFL level, he said that Taylor Wine was going to be the breakout star at defensive end, and he absolutely has been the breakout star at defensive end. He's going to be somebody that I think Ole Miss fans are going to like watch that dude play, and they're going to really respect his game because he just plays so hard and with such great effort. South Carolina actually had a chance to score a touchdown last week on a 4th and goal, and Lenora Sellers breaks away from the scrum, and he looks like he's headed towards the end zone. Taylor Wine chases him down from behind to stop him in 4th and like at the 3-yard line. So it was such a huge play in that game to give Oklahoma early momentum. And that's just kind of the player that he is, just plays with relentless effort and energy. And he just blows things up even when he's not the guy making the tackle or the sack.
You know, the quarterbacks we know, the Trinidad Chambliss, the John Mateer playing the quarterback, everybody's going to pay attention to that. But you know, the best player on Ole Miss's offense that Oklahoma fans need to keep an eye on is Daquan Wright. It's the tight end. Mm-hmm. He's averaging about 22 yards per reception from the tight end position. He is a super athlete out there. And listen, with the way that Oklahoma likes to blitz. Now they like to steal slants and try and play RPOs and stuff like that. All of the stuff that Brent Venables is known for. But Caden Lee, Daquan Wright, Luke Hass, who is an Oklahoma native that is going to likely play in this game and is probably going to be extremely up for it.
One that got away.
Yes, I think they're going to try and bait Oklahoma. And if they can figure out where Oklahoma is wanting to blitz from, they're going to RPO where that rusher is coming from, and that might be what Charlie Weiss Jr. and Lane Kiffin are looking at in this ball game.
Yeah, I mean, the chess game between those two are it's going to be incredible. And I'll be curious, man, will Brent Venables come out and try to attack Trinidad early in this one, or is he going to kind of lay back and see if they can rush forward and play coverage to keep everything underneath? Because there's a lot of explosive wide receivers on that team, and you don't necessarily want to create opportunities for them to have big plays. So will they play more, for cover 4, cover 3, drop guys back and play that middle of the field and just rush their 4 guys? Because they've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that can get after the quarterback by themselves. They can stop the run by themselves. They've got some good active linebackers. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how that plays out. For Oklahoma's offensive player, you got to know it's true freshman running back Tory Blaylock. He's a 2-time SEC Freshman of the Week now. Just had his second 100-yard day against South Carolina. Dude's a star, man. He's a star in the making. He's got the speed to create big plays. He's got the athleticism to bounce outside if things are clogged up in the middle. His dad was a former NFL running back, Derek Blaylock, and Tory, track star. He was part of a national record-setting 4x100 relay team down in Texas and has the speed. And he's not just a speed guy, though. He's a physical guy. He'll run you over. And if they get him going early, which they did against South Carolina, they gave him 4 carries on that opening drive, where the week before against Texas, they only gave him 2 carries in the entire first quarter. They flipped things a little bit and made the run game a priority. If they go into this and they really look to get Tory going early, that's a guy that can create some big plays for Oklahoma.
Yeah, and Ben Arbuckle, he's not directly a descendant of the Mike Leach tree, but he's like a branch that's way off to the side a little bit. Yeah. And usually when you play there's air raid teams, the drop 8 is the preferred thing because they won't commit to the running game. They might do it for a little bit, or they might do it for a game, but it's hard for them to commit. Do you think that Ben Arbuckle will go a second game and commit to the run game?
Man, I hope so, because it worked last week. It took a little bit of the pressure off of John Mateer. Didn't make him have to do everything. In that first quarter that first half against Texas, John Mateer was responsible for 25 of Oklahoma's plays, whether he threw a pass, ran the ball, or was sacked. Whereas the running backs were only responsible for like 9 plays. They only got 9 carries in the first half. That can't happen. That's too much imbalance. And Oklahoma had a lead in that. When you're in a neutral game script, you got to continue to ride your running game and let them take the pressure off your quarterback and keep defenses honest, especially this week against an Ole Miss defense that hasn't really stopped the run very well. Run the ball. If they prove they can stop it, then you got to adjust a little bit, but spread them out, run the ball. And that's what they did effectively against South Carolina. They took their tight end and pulled him away from the offensive line, pulled him out of the formation, and it lightened the box a little bit for them to be able to run against. I hope Ben Arbuckle learned a thing or two last week that he can apply to this game, because that is Oklahoma's best path forward, especially over the remainder of the schedule. They're not going to face a defense quite like Texas is over the final 5 games. Run the ball, use play action, take the pressure off John Mateer and the wide receivers, and see if you can control the clock a little bit to keep Ole Miss's offense on the sideline, because again, Ole Miss is so dynamic, man. If they get in a rhythm, like you saw against Georgia last week, they can put up some points on you in a hurry and you won't have any answers. Now, my question for Ole Miss is, can they play in the second half the same way that they've played first halves? Because you look at some of the point differentials and some of the points they've been putting up in the first half, and they are phenomenal against Power 4 competition. In the second half, it kind of slows some things down.
Yeah. And we talked about earlier, this would be the first top 50 offense that Oklahoma as a defensive unit has gone up against. So we'll see how that looks. Oh, before we take a break, is this going to be a weather game?
It sure seems like it. Like our soccer league just announced that they're canceling all their games for Saturday and moving them around. So there's a chance that it's going to be a weather game. The Friday night football games are getting rescheduled for Thursday and everybody's making adjustments. So there's a pretty good chance this is going to be a weather game, which to me kind of works a little bit in Oklahoma's favor.
I'm thinking the other way on that, because with a running quarterback and a quarterback that just got off a thumb surgery with a football that might be a little bit more difficult to grip, I think turnovers could become a problem, and a running quarterback that can do both is an advantage. But we'll talk about that in Paths to Victory coming up next whenever you tune into the Locked On Sooners and Locked On Ole Miss podcast with John Williams and Steve Willis. It's going to be a great football game. Yep. Everybody's going to talk about Missouri and Vanderbilt, and they should. Vandy being a top 10 team, that's amazing.
Vandy. Don't talk about it because of Missouri.
Yeah, but this game is not getting the respect that it deserves, and we will talk about that coming up next.
Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. With the all-wheel drive standard within every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved.
All right, Stephen Willis from Locked On Ole Miss with John Williams from Locked On Sooners. And listen, the path to victory in this game for Ole Miss needs to be a shootout. If it's a shootout going up and down the field, you have to like Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss's chances in that game. If it's a situation where Ole Miss scores 5 TDs on the first 5 drives, Ole Miss is winning that game against Oklahoma. That's just the way it's going to happen. I think it needs to be a shootout. But if it's a weather game, it likely is not going to be a shootout, which you go back to having this slow slog and everything going on, and maybe Kewan Lacey takes a larger role in the game for Ole Miss. But Trinidad Chambliss handling the moment. That place gets really loud for these lifelong 2-century rivals. I think whoever steps up at wide receiver, because even I have no idea who that could be for Ole Miss, because it varies from game to game. And if Ole Miss does not allow 140 yards rushing against Oklahoma, Ole Miss will win this game. I've got Ole Miss 24, Oklahoma 17.
Okay. Yeah. I think there's so many different ways this game could play out. This is what Oklahoma got into the SEC for, though. A top 15 matchup. Last year, we didn't hold up our end of the bargain when teams like Tennessee and Alabama came to town, South Carolina, when they came to town. We were not the ranked team when that happened. Well, this year, that's not the case. We have an elite defense. We've got an offense that's been just good enough. They haven't had the breakout performance yet. Against teams like Auburn and Michigan, they were good enough. They weren't great. Against South Carolina, again, good enough, not great. If this gets into a track meet and it's an up and down affair, I just don't know if Oklahoma's got it in them to play that kind of a football game. What I think they're going to try to do is play complementary football, continue to run the ball, establish the run, play good defense, use field position, use special teams to be a weapon, and play a defensive type of game. And they're good enough to do that. If they play that way, they're going to have a good game on the ground. They're going to have a good game from John Mateer, who's been efficient. When he tries to play a little bit too much hero ball, he forces some things. But if he plays within the foundation of the offense, and they run the football effectively, this is going to be a really good game for Oklahoma. I do think it's going to be a close one, though. I'm looking right now like 23-20. I think a last second field goal could kind of be the deciding factor in this one. And Oklahoma's got a great kicker in Tate Sandell, who just seems to be able to hit it from everywhere. Now, if weather's involved, how much does that impact his ability to kick? We'll see, but he's been great. He's on a great string right now. But Oklahoma's great at stopping the run. They've been a little bit susceptible to some deep passes, especially on the perimeter when they're kind of throwing some YOLO balls. But they've been really good in the middle part of the field. So that's, to me, I think where it's going to be won and lost is, do Oklahoma's cornerbacks hold up against this bevy of weapons that Lane Kiffin and Trinidad Chambliss have to offer, man? That's the key to me.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I do think that this game is a front runner game. Whoever has the lead is probably going to keep the lead.
Mm-hmm.
If Oklahoma jumps out on Ole Miss, they're going to keep it. If Ole Miss jumps out on Oklahoma, they're going to keep it. I don't think this is a situation that you're going to come back from multiple scores down to win. It just doesn't feel that way. I mentioned on my show, and for the people watching your stuff, half my family are from Lincoln, Nebraska. So my whole life, I grew up and I heard if Nebraska ever played Ole Miss, you would never win the game. And it's like, you just give up on that. And I was like, well, Ole Miss is undefeated against Nebraska, whatever. Yeah. But my point is, I used to watch that game at Owen Field, and that's how I know it, because that's what it was called back in the day. Whenever you do it, Jamel Holloway, Keith Jackson, all of those guys running across the field, because they were going against the Nebraska game. Thanksgiving weekend, I was rooting for Barry Switzer. I was trying to figure out the wishbone and all that. Tom Osborne was the devil to me. So I have a soft spot in my heart for Oklahoma. And I always have. And it's because of that side of the family that I have that. So there is no animosity, Oklahoma fans, between me towards you. But we will see how it goes with these new lifelong rivals that we're going to get to know each other intimately over the next 4 years, because it's a permanent opponent that's only 4 years scheduled. I don't know. So we'll see exactly what happens. Huh?
I hope we keep it, man. We have Texas, who we hate. We have Missouri, who we forgot about, but now that they're back, we kind of we remember, oh yeah, we hate those guys too. Oh, it's just kind of a fun one. Like, it's a fun one to have. The Grove is great. The uniform matchup potential is fantastic with some of Ole Miss's combinations that they throw out there on the field, and kind of Oklahoma's classic looks. I think there's just a lot of potential. Lane Kiffin is just a great follow on social media. He's a great, head coach to listen to when he does his press conferences. They're very different. Lane Kiffin's a little more laid back. Brent Venables a little more intense. And I just think it just makes for a fun matchup, regardless of, there's not much really no history except for last year, but it's still a lot of fun, man.
It's 2 games.
Yeah.
We played over 2 centuries.
There you go. And it's 2 top 15 teams that, if everything goes right for Oklahoma, they can stay in that mix and be a top 25 team year in and year out. And Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin's going to be. So I think there's a lot of potential for this one to have college football playoff implications on a regular basis.
Yeah. And I've mentioned it a couple of times on a couple of my shows this week, talking to people. The crown on the field that Owen Field used to have, it was like playing on a roof. It was amazing to see that happening. So we will see. It's another big moment for Locked On college football fans. Locked On and Fire TV are presenting College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation, alongside 2-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson and former college star Jesse Holley, along with Locked On's panel of experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. John, thank you so much for doing this, and hopefully it's a good game on Saturday. Yep. The weather holds off, and the winner of the game, there's no significant injuries or anything like that, and we do it all again next year in Vaught Hemingway Stadium.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one, man.
Actually next year's in Oklahoma.
That's right. We come back to back. Yeah. Yeah. So I hope everybody has a good trip, and the weather doesn't, keep people from coming to the game anyway. And it's going to be a fun one, man. This is what college football is supposed to be about, is these big time matchups on a weekly basis. And it's going to have huge implications for the college football playoff for both teams.
And people driving in, where there's speed traps coming from the east.
coming from the east, so you'll be coming on 40. Not a lot coming on 40. It's not too bad. If you're coming up 35, you'll certainly want to be careful in like places like Lindsay and Ardmore, stuff like that. But there's not a lot because they've kind of raised the speed limits in Oklahoma on some of the highways, so it's a little bit better, a little bit more friendly to the commuter.
All right. Well, I will talk to you later. Thank you very much. And everybody going to the game, please be safe. This is the Locked On Ole Miss and Locked On Sooners podcast.